we work very hard to get marginalized talent into the industry, to protect them the way that we would want to have been protected, to lift them up, and to get them into an industry where they're too often shut out. And basically, I think to take over, take over, take over, take over, take over, in the hopes that some really dope people will be able to lead into kind of a new era for an industry that's been kind of, the same way too long.
This Sweet Baby Ink thing is not going away. And keep this in the back of your mind till we get to the end of the video. But when do you think Gamergate 2.0, which is what this is going to end? Just keep that up there and answer it in the comment section below when we get there. But there are more and more stories coming out today. We're going to cover a couple of them and maybe three. And just be very aware that these same players are overlapping from Gamergate 1. These same ideologues that are creating these entities and writing these stories are all the same names you've heard before. And they're all stepping up to the plate to play defense, which is weird. So let's get into the story itself. This one, of course, is the one that inspired it over at That Park Place from John F. Trent. There is a Bungie senior narrative designer that's defending Sweet Baby Inc., basically parroting what the CEO said. You need to grow up. Essentially calling you babies, but we'll get into that in just a moment. Just a quick reminder, that's Punk Wallow down there, letting you know that you can check out my merch store, beachpunk.us, where you can get hats and shirts and all kinds of great things, towels. We've got board shorts, all kinds of things. You can check that out down there. But moving on, as you can see, I've got several different thumbnail designs for this video alone, and I was just trying to pin one down. So if you see a different one than this one on the video itself, well, let me know. Let me know if you notice that little detail. But for now, this is the one we've got. And we'll get through this story very quickly, but I'm going to say this. I want to add a little context. I'm not sure that the guy that they're talking about in the story needs to be dragged so much by anybody. I mean, obviously, awareness is good, and this story is great, but maybe if you read through the bulk of this person's Twitter, he's got a lot of things in there that seem reasonable, and he definitely, when it comes to pop culture, understands just how bad the Halo series is. So there you go. But anyway, so this Bungie senior narrative designer chose to defend Sweet Baby Inc. and even parroted comments made by the CEO, company CEO, telling gamers they need to grow up. So the name here is Thickcest Yosh. That might not be it. It might be Thickcest wrote. I don't know. But anyway, regardless, that's the Twitter X handle. And he proclaims that he is a senior narrative designer, and I have no reason to doubt him. He probably is. If you look at his banner on his profile, it's got all that information out there. And again, I'm not telling you, there's no reason to drag this guy. He actually, in this particular tweet that is out here right now, is actually protected. It can only be replied to people that, that he invited to have a conversation with. But as you can see, he says, if you're mad about DEI ruining games, you need to grow up. You need to stop wasting so much time on grifters who are only here to manipulate you and milk your anger for engagement. You need to talk to people who aren't like you a bit more. You need to stop falling for this. Falling for what? You can be mad about people inserting political ideology, trying to indoctrinate people into things that are being put into games. You're not the police of what is allowed, people are allowed to be angry about. That's just kind of strange. You're not the king. You're not a god. You don't get to choose that. The people that are objecting to it, they don't necessarily need to grow up. I mean, maybe some people are younger than 18, but decent chance there's a lot of adults out there too. And there's some pretty good dialogue going on about all of this out there in the world if you chose to pay attention. But yeah, and then stop wasting your time on grifters. Have you read the Kotaku article or anything else? Have you? I mean, people who repurpose other people's work, which would be, well, what Sweet Baby Inc. does, because nothing new created seems to get infected with this. Because if you're trying to get something new out there and you put this garbage in it, it will fail. Whereas the only way they can do anything with it, and this is the same with television and film, is they have to insert that into products that people already love, that have a following, and it just doesn't work. That's what propagandists do, though, and so they do that, and then they destroy the value of whatever that intellectual property is, and then people stop consuming it. This is what's going to happen to Indiana Jones. It did. It's what's going to happen to Star Wars, because it did. And it's what's going to happen to many other things, whether it be DC, because the Superman Legacy thing, or whatever it is now, just being Superman, is hot garbage. You don't need that many people in a Superman movie. And look at what it did to Marvel already. You get things like the Marvels. Anyway. So there's no grift. But there is a conversation, and some of the stuff that you see out there is actually news. And we do have a good news article. This is one of them. So the commentary echoes what Sweet Baby Inc. CEO said, comparing gamers, in 2019, saying about straight white male gamers, they are very racist. She compared them to picky babies. So she breaks that all down. You've probably seen it. If not, it's right here. It's the GDC, the Gamers Development Conference, and it's this one, representation as innovation, which it isn't. There's always been representation in games, just not with the identitarian kicker that y'all try to throw in there. But anyway, so she doubled down later on the metaphor about the picky babies and all of that, in that saying that we cannot continue to try and create art under a system that is going to bar innovation for fear of a picky baby throwing a tantrum. Well, I mean, she probably feels that these words were prophetic, because they probably look at people who are complaining about this as babies. Well, those very powerful babies. And you probably consider that them basically just calling out your garbage and reporting what games you're involved in as throwing a tantrum. Well, I don't think that's entirely true. I think it's informing the public of when ideology, identitarian politics has been inserted in things. But look at it how you want there, Kim. So, but the minute you start going after things with language that is offensive, you're going to lose people. So people don't want to be called names. And it's funny, because you have a lot of people that write about this, and a lot of people that are, quick to defend people like Kim Belair and her efforts with Sweet Baby and the other 13 companies out there that ruin games. Like this article that was written in Thought Catalog by Emily Goldstein back in 2015, explicitly detailing what diversity means. So her article is titled, "Yes, Diversity is about getting rid of white people, and that's a good thing." More than a little bit incendiary. Not to mention the fact that they use slurs all the time within every single context imaginable. So, again, you can read this for yourself, and the article is available. It's linked via that Park Place article, but that's exactly right. Diversity is about getting rid of white people, and that's a good thing. So frustrating. The minute you start calling people names, or if you're identifying them as for what they are, it's something different. But when you start using slurs and calling them names like cis and stuff like that, you've lost your argument, and you've probably lost your audience. But anyway, the guy that's going to get dragged here because of this article and a few others, maybe unfairly, I think. And again, it's not John's fault. This guy wrote what he wrote, and it's still up on his Twitter. Um, he had to deal with stuff. I mean, if you go through his Twitter, he's got some pretty strong opinions when it comes to things that are bad, like Halo and stuff. And he would know, again, Bungie. But he's like, he does get told what's what. DEI extortion is morally good, because that's what Kim Belair was trying to tell people to do with their marketing departments, to force this garbage into their games. So, and then, the people calling him out for maybe not talking to people who have different perspectives, because he's like, oh, you need to talk to people who are not like you. Well, do what I do for a living, dude. Then Fat Steven actually got in there. A lot of people did. And this is the funniest thing. So I read this. It's very narrow-minded to attribute a game's performance to directly align with just the social commentary things you don't like, don't you think? Well, it's pretty easy to look at the massive failure of Saints Row specifically and attribute it directly to a lot of things people don't like being forced into their entertainment. The SJW messaging that's, full of all of the fallacy that is, and everything else that came along from that, whether it be DEI or any of the other things there, And if you're trying to get some kind of human rights campaign award points, then corporate equity index, then you're automatically inserting a political mindset into everything. Weaponized nerd rage is going after them. So you better try to consider listening to some other people who have pretty good takes on this. And then, of course, somebody claiming victimhood. But this is pretty interesting. DIE is not only destroying gaming, but entertainment as a whole. It's great that Japanese and Korean companies don't care about this grift. It's been a while since I bought a Western game. A lot of people are headed that direction. Jeff Richmond says, hey, can you show us when you've talked to people on here who aren't like you? This is so fun. You can read through these comments if you want to. And again, I don't drag this dude. That is not my intent. Just understand that this is one opinion that they have, and maybe they're playing defense because they know somebody on that team. But this is probably one of the best articles I've seen. It's from The Shortcut. You can check this out. I may actually link it on my social media. But it says, Sweet Baby Inc. detected. What exactly happened and why should you care? This is very balanced reporting. With the exception of the thing I have highlighted right now, the inclusion-focused narrative company, which is actually exclusionary-focused narrative company, because they talk about exclusion, and they say some racist stuff, and they do some racist stuff. Anyway, that's the only thing that I quibble with in this article. You can read through this, have a pretty balanced take on what happened, what the history is of this entirely. And they do exactly the same thing as Sweet Baby Inc. Detected does over on the Curator site. They actually break down basically what the company does. It tells you who they are, the About Us section, who their clients are, the games they worked on, what do they do. And again, it all shows where games all of a sudden stepped off a cliff, and including Alan Wake 2, which I'm going to tell you right now, not fantastic. And people that are trying to play defense saying that they don't do these things in games, like the Kotaku article, which, by the way, most disingenuous piece of trash I've read, and we talked about it previously in another video, but it doesn't do what some gamers think it does. No, it does exactly what the gamers think it does. It really does. But back to the balanced article here. But they basically just strip out everything else, and they break down the series of steps that got Chris Kindred's Twitter and other things locked down, and however that went down and everything else, and basically pointing to the fact that you can't do these targeted harassment campaigns against people like this Kindred person tried to do, and their friend, this Felix guy, tried to do. So yeah, Felix Maya Kramer. Right, so here it is, and again, think about this. They got community noted right away. I don't know. But Kramer's post received a community note and yada, yada, yada. So Kramer and Kindred's attempts to ban Sweet Baby Inc. detected resulted in a huge backlash from some gamers online and raised questions about the company as a whole. Of course, now they're over 220,000 followers over there in just a few days. I mean, this thing was founded on January 29th to call out what's actually happening there. And Cabrutus has done a great job with this, and he's kind of narrowed some guidelines and kind of brought some things in line. So very, very well done. But again, when you see ESG and DE, I understand that that's the neo-Marxist identitarian movements that are trying to destroy civilization as we know it, and normalize things that are patently bad for civilization, humanity, and, well, young people. But anyway, so you can check out that article. That's also out there. And again, just remember, places like Kotaku are part of a dying media group, right? A lot of these things owned by Geo Media and stuff, they're falling apart. They can say all these things. You're watching the natural trends for these companies just slide away. And eventually I would figure that Geo's going to probably close more things that are not Jezebel. They probably will close Kotaku because nobody cares for them. Interestingly enough, Fandom Pulse found a couple other things that were going on. Another article by Nathan Grayson that also was rushing to the aid of Sweet Baby Inc. and did so very poorly. You can read through this article over on Fandom Pulse. I thought this picture was funny. It's like turning back the calendar to August 2014. It's pretty funny. And the truth is, I mean, this is the truth. This is all Gamergate 2.0 again. Remember, I told you to keep that in the back of your mind at the beginning of the video. Let me know if you think that's a pretty good comparison, a direct comparison to something that's actually happening. But courtesy of Asmongold, and I showed this in the last video, and I wanted to bring it back out there again because credit goes to this Kaiju 2016 person over, it looks like on Reddit, that there is a list of 14 companies right now. It's probably more than that. In fact, as we come across more people, we should probably continue to add to this and subtract from it when they go out of business. These are the groups and the people that are pushing this garbage into our games. So anytime they have anything to do with a game, you can almost certainly count on the game being garbage. Anyway, that's about it for today. I want to say thank you for being here once again. For your thoughts, hit that comment section down below. I would really appreciate it. Do you think this is Gamergate 2.0? I do. Do you think that we need to be more fair sometimes when we look at some things that people say and just bring it into context? And again, some of what is attributed to even Kim Belair is taken out of context. We need to be careful with that. I think that's important. But at the same time, do you think that we should continue to make each other aware of these entities and what games they're involved in so we can keep our money out of those studios' pockets to really send a message that we don't want neo-Marxist identitarian politics in our games? Well, we certainly don't want them indoctrinating generations to come, because that's the whole point of this, is to forcing this stuff through culture, is indoctrinating people into these mindsets. They don't work. And we're watching a brand new generation of young people reject all this garbage. So good for them. On that note, as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya.